Some sound for you now from Times Square this weekend, where pro-Hamas sympathizers assembled to express themselves.
From the river to the sea.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
Palestine will be free.
The group chanting for the destruction of Israel. That's what that means, from the river to the sea. For more on this, the man who captured that footage joins us now. Julio Rosas, a senior writer for Town Hall and the author of the book Fiery but Mostly Peaceful, the 2020 Riots and the Gaslighting of America. Julio, good to have you back with us, sir.
It was a hectic weekend, Vince.
It's crazy. So did you get the sense that the people out there were explicitly supportive of Hamas?
Yeah. I mean, it was weird because they weren't, kind of couching their, they weren't saying we support a free Palestine, but we don't support how they're going about it. One of the speakers at that rally right in Times Square, was talking about how great the initial invasion was, and how many rockets they were able to fire at Israel, reaching Tel Aviv, and the entire crowd was cheering for.
Let me play that audio. Julio captured this weekend. Listen to what he captured here.
Early morning on Saturday, October 7th, our resistance stormed illegal settlements and paraglided across colonial borders. Into the largest military base around Gaza,
All right.
in this operation and Aqsa Flood,
Sister, are you part of the organizers?
resistance fires more than 5,000 rockets. Reaching Tel Aviv.
That's an explicit support for the attack, Julio. And I can't help but notice that's a woman who is saying all of that. She must be either cognizant of or blocking out entirely the fact that you had countless women who were raped, killed, and taken hostage by Hamas.
I mean, yeah, there's no other way to explain it. And really, it just shows that, this conflict, as complicated as it is, they really have the ends justify the means attitude towards it. And the reason why that's concerning is because of how many people showed up in support of that rally and participated in that yesterday. At first, it was only a couple dozen people, but probably about an hour or so later, when they started to march to the General Consulate of Israel by the UN headquarters, it was close to 1,000 people who were marching as part of this, organized rally. And so there really is this mindset where, things like that need to take place because, it's happened to us, so we got to do it back to them. And, obviously there's plenty of Jewish people that live here, that have businesses and, made their lives here. And
Yes.
so it's worrying that if this thing escalates even more, that, is that hatred going to spill out to the streets of America? It's already happened in London. I was seeing reports there where Jewish businesses were being targeted over in London because, there's a bunch of, radicals that have now made their lives over there as well. So, this can spiral out of control very quickly, not just in Israel, but within the rest of the world.
So that's a good point. So there's a downside, in other words, to not controlling your borders, right? London's experiencing that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's why, it's not exactly the same situation, but there are parallels to, what's happening with our own southern border and to, how people were able to take advantage of the weak spots and take advantage of the complacency that happened on Saturday. So it really should send a warning to the country and to our leadership. But, of course, Biden, I don't even know, where is he right now? He's already called the lid today. Yeah, exactly. Right. So our leadership is absent. So it really doesn't, it's really terrible foreshadowing for our own country. And I'm not saying this to be hyperbolic, but this really has brought some of the worst fears that I've had, covering our own border crisis to, back to the forefront, because again, when you have enemies, they're going to exploit weaknesses, whether you give them up willingly or not.
Totally true. New York City was not the only place where you had pro-Hamas people assembling in the United States. It also happened outside the White House. This was filmed by our friend Matthew Foldy, who captured this, again, outside the White House yesterday. Listen to this. The audio is glory to all the resistance fighters. They've got tanks. We've got hang gliders. All right, so it doesn't get really much more explicit than that, does it, Julio? Where you have people straight up chanting about the tactics Hamas used because they floated across the border, many of these guys, on hang gliders before then, again, they raped, killed, and took hostages.
Yeah, this really shows that there really is no bottom to any of this. I mean, it's again, I'm not trying to I always constantly be the doom and gloom guy whenever I come on your show, but this is a real sentiment, and things are going to become more heated with everything else that we've got going on. I mean, we've got the election coming up, and our relationship with Israel will definitely be at the forefront now.
Yes.
And how that gets proceeded forward, and if this sizable population in our country doesn't like, if we were going to give more support or stand by Israel, they might take action, whether beyond just chance. And that's not trying to again be just be the sky is falling, but these are real threats. I mean, you had people in Times Square dressing up almost like Hamas. They had the bandanas, they had the head wraps. I mean, they had the whole getup essentially, and that was right next to the Armed Forces Recruiting Center. Right there in that popular tourist destination. So I'm pretty worried more than ever. And it's only a matter of time to see whether or not any of this is going to come to fruition.
I'm sorry, Julio. Did you say that? You may have just said it, so forgive me if you did. But that you did see people dressed in Antifa garb?
No, Hamas.
Okay, so Hamas style garb. The reason I'm asking is because your colleague at Town Hall, a guy called Phil Holloway. He captured some footage outside the White House as well. And he indicated on Twitter yesterday that he spotted several people who were dressed like Antifa in all black garb with their faces covered. Did you see anything like that in New York?
No, but I mean, I'm not surprised that there's going to be some overlap there because, I mean, they have the same kind of ideology in terms of, decolonization and because they hate the United States as well and everything in its current state. And so there's a lot of commonalities between, and they see themselves as freedom fighters, whether it's, people who, in the Gaza Strip or, people who, Portland, Oregon, right? I mean, but I wouldn't be surprised if there is more joint partnerships, if you can say that, between the two, just because they have so much in common in terms of their ideology, and tactics. Yeah,
and it's just wild too, because fundamentally there's a real loathing for the Western world built into all of this, and I would say that the people, American citizens in particular, who refer to America as being a colonizer or something stupid like that, these are ingrates. They're people ungrateful for their circumstances. You live in the greatest country on the planet, under the greatest circumstances you could possibly imagine in world history, and you're sitting there going, we're the bad guys to attack your own country? And you've witnessed a ton of that, Julio.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I'm more worried than ever about whether things can happen here moving forward, because the conditions to get people off the bench, as it were, to kind of get back into the game of things, the swing of things, because. And we're at our weakest point. Police departments are defunded. Crime is at an all-time high. People are struggling financially, and so I mean, all those things really radicalizes people. And when they see that, also this is happening, across the world in this long struggle against imperialism, quote unquote, and colonialism, quote unquote. But I'm seeing the conditions to be created for another kind of hectic year, especially because we're entering the presidential election cycle.
How critical do you think this presidential election cycle is, Julio?
I mean, I know. See, I've always heard it. It's the most important election in our lifetime, and
Sure.
I kind of hate to kind of echo that. But in my view, in my short 27 years on this earth, I really do think it's a make or break because putting everything else aside, I don't see economically how we can continue going the way that we've been going under the Biden administration. I can't see how the border situation can continue on for another 4 years. I really don't. And if it does, okay, I'm going to be busy for the next 4 years in terms of that. But for the overall health of the nation, I don't see how that's going to be viable. I really don't. And so this is definitely, in my view, a make or break moment for us.
Of course. Yeah. The closer you get to your own country's destruction, the more important the efforts to stop it are. And that's definitely true, I think, going into next year. And man, you talk about you have been right on the front line of covering so much of the decline, whether it was the George Floyd riots in 2020 or certainly our collapsing border or the ongoing crime in our cities or the occupations by leftists who turn various spots in American cities into, anarchy zones. You've seen a lot of it. And I don't actually know how you stay so cheerful, Julio. Like your disposition is still pretty cheerful in light of all of that.
Oh well, it's tough. I won't lie because it's kind of a front row seat and you don't really see an end to it. But if I lose my mind, then I can't continue doing what I do. So
Sure.
I certainly find my ways to try to decompress from everything. But I'm admittedly myself. I was in D.C. for a wedding this weekend. I wasn't planning on going to New York to cover all this, but I was caught off guard myself in my own way, and so I learned my lesson. And so from now on, whenever I'm not traveling for work, I'm going to still be packing and taking everything with me that in case I need to go cover something, because that's what I had to do in 2020 and into 2021 because we're certainly in uncertain times.
Yeah.
So for me and for what I do, I'm going to make sure that if something happens when I'm away from home and I can't,
Amazing.
I'm going to make sure I'm going to be ready.
And my guess is that New York City has more cameras per square mile than any other city on the planet, and it took you driving up from Washington, D.C. to get us the footage we're now consuming. So that's also a media commentary for what it's worth. Julio Rosas, thank you very much. Good to talk to you, sir. Really appreciate your time as always.